Assalamu alaikum girls. Welcome to your recorded lesson of week 5. This is your last lesson that will be included in the midterm assessment. So let's get into section 6.10, that is computers in medicine. It's one of the more interesting topics that you have in chapter 6. What we are trying to cover in this section is the following. We want to try to describe what are the contents of information systems in medicine. So how patient records work, how pharmacy records work, how are expert systems for diagnosis going to work, and so on. Something else that we discuss is how 3D printers can be used to produce medical aids for patients. This includes prosthetics like artificial legs and artificial arms, and even tissue engineering and so on. So let's, as a starter, first watch a video on how to 3D print a bone. Now that you've watched the video, have a thinking about what is the new technology in this video that interested you the most. What did you find most fascinating? When we talk about computers in medicine, they are used in many areas of medicine. The first one we like to look at is patient and pharmacy records. That means there are databases that keep records of patients, what medicines they are taking, and all their other medical details. This is so that correct diagnosis can be made about what disease a particular patient is having, and accordingly the correct treatment can be given. So a doctor always needs to know what is the past history of a patient to decide what disease he might be having now. And these pharmacy and patient records are databases that store all these details. Patient data that is generally included in a database would include things like the ID of the patient, what his or her name is, when they were born, gender, blood group, what medical history they have, some past diseases or so on, and any other scans and images that have been taken before. Monitoring patients is another application of computers in medicine. Monitoring means that you have real-time monitoring of your patient by connecting them to a computer using sensors. 24-hour monitoring is made possible by using computers. You can monitor the heart rate, the breathing rate, the blood pressure, etc. of all your patients by using sensors attached to the computer. And these results will be shown on a monitor, and if there are some variations, etc., the buzzer will output some sound. You would have seen examples of this in movies where the heart rate of a patient is going critically low and the computer buzzer makes a sound that alerts the doctor that something is wrong. So this kind of a monitoring system makes 24-hour monitoring possible instead of manual monitoring, which cannot be done 24/7. The third application of ICT in medicine is expert systems. You will be learning further about expert systems in the coming weeks, but now all you need to know is that an expert system can be used to diagnose patients and their illnesses and so on. How it works is that there will be an input screen where an interactive screen is presented to the user, and the system will ask you a series of questions about what illness the patient has. The user will then input their answers as I have this, I don't have this, and so on. And based on that, the expert system will try to find out what disease the patient is having. There will be some rules base and knowledge base that is used to match and find out the diagnosis, and once a match is found, it will suggest that the patient's illness is such and such with this probability. And also the expert system will then suggest what are some possible solutions and remedies that can be done. The output screen will give this diagnosis out for the patient and maybe even show images of where the illness might be located in the human body. The user can then request further information to narrow down what possible illness he actually has. Don't worry too much about this topic. You will be learning expert systems in more detail in the coming week. The fourth application of ICT in medicine is the use of 3D printers. You have learned about 3D printers already in the chapter on output devices. 3D printers help you to print out surgical aids, prosthetics and body parts, similar to what you have seen already in the starter video. The fifth application of ICT in medicine is tissue engineering. Tissue engineering means you try to grow organs out of cells and print cells to grow whole organs and tissues from it. How does this work? By using 3D bioprinting. That means cells are diffused together into a mold which will end up being the shape of the organ that you need, and then it grows by using bioprinted tissue and becomes actual tissue. Like this, ears can be made, some even arteries and other organs have been successfully made. This is actually a very complex process but a very promising one for the medical field. You can see here an example of how some arteries have been made and some body parts like ears and nose have been made for patients who might have lost them in accidents and so on. As a plenary for today's lesson, try to think of what all are the impact of computers in medicine. Like we discussed, there are 5 possible impacts. One is that patient records and pharmacy records can be maintained. Number 2 is that expert systems can be used to diagnose illnesses. Number 3 is constant monitoring of the patients is possible. Number 4 is that 3D printing can be done for prosthetics. And number 5 is that tissue engineering can be done as well. That's all for today, girls. Hope you revise this topic as well for your midterm assessment, and good luck. Assalamu alaikum.